I'm here talking with Marc Cushman, author of the book I Spy, which has a long-tailed subheading. What is that?
Cue the book. Yeah, it's called I Spy, a history and episode guide to the groundbreaking television series. I had to read it because when I wrote it, it was I Spy, Breaking Through the Barriers. The publisher changed the title. We call it Breaking Through the Barriers because I Spy broke through 3 very important barriers, which is why I decided to write the book.
And we're going to dive a little deeper into those in a minute. The 3 barriers are contribution to civil rights.
Civil rights.
The buddy genre.
Buddy genre.
And technological advances.
Right, the technology they invented to go and shoot this around the world. I was civil rights would be a good place to start because that's probably the most important. This was the first show to put a white and black actor together on TV and put them together on equal status as stars and in the way they were portrayed in the show. And Bill Cosby was the first actor to win an Emmy, black actor to win an Emmy because of this show. So it did a lot for civil rights. It opened up the floodgates for a lot of other shows that came on in the next year or two. Mission Impossible, Star Trek, Hogan's Heroes, all the shows that would have a black in the cast, or a Hispanic in the cast, or a Vulcan in the cast. And this was the first show that did it. Somebody had to be first. The networks were nervous, and they were waiting for somebody to test the waters.
And so the average American got used to seeing a black actor come into their living room, and the world did not end.
Yeah, it didn't end, and no stations got blown up. But the network was very nervous about it because it's amazing to look at the headlines from that era. I try to write these like little time machines, take you back in time and read the headlines from various magazines of the way it was talked about. To say now that he was the first black to do this is impressive, but to hear it in their words from those years when the headline in Daily Variety said, NBC to test the way the winds are blowing in Dixie, to cast a Negro in a primetime show, and he doesn't have to sing or tap dance. That was a headline in Daily Variety. That was the thinking and the prejudice that was out there at that time, and what they were facing and what they were trying to conquer.
Sheldon Leonard was a big piece of that. Now, my understanding is the network didn't really know that he planned to have a black actor in the lead.
Yeah, well, if they had known, he wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have let him do it. Sheldon Leonard was a gambler. He was known as an actor from the 40s, played gangsters, but he was a producer at this time, and the most successful producer in TV. He had Gomer Pyle, the Andy Griffith Show, the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Danny Thomas Show, all these hits. But they were all half-hour black and white comedies done on a stage. He wanted to do an hour show in color. He wanted to travel the world. So he came up with this idea, co-created it with Robert Cope. James Bond was hot in the movies that Goldfinger had just come out. So he went to NBC and said, you need a spy show on TV. And they said, yeah, we know. And he said, and it should be in color, because you're the Peacock Network. You live in color. And I want to shoot it around the world. And they knew his reputation. They wanted to do business with him, so they said, okay. And I have Robert Cope, who was a big star in television, who just come off of a hit Western series called Trackdown. So NBC said, okay, without even seeing a pilot, they said, give us 29 episodes. Well, then Sheldon Leonard decides, and Cope decided it would be good to give that character a partner. And they saw Bill Cosby on the Johnny Carson show doing a stand-up bit for his first album. He was pretty much unknown. And he was doing a karate routine. And they were very impressed with his moves, with his look, with his voice. So they contacted him and offered him the part. And he didn't believe them. He thought they were joking because he had never acted, and he was black. And nobody was doing that on TV. They said, we're serious, we're going to put you in the show. NBC gets the first episode, shipped back from Hong Kong, and they see Cope and a black guy sharing a hotel room, sharing a bathroom in 1965. And they were very concerned and said, you got to take him out. And he says, no, I got a deal with you to do 29 episodes, pay or play. I'm going to produce them, and you're going to pay for them, whether you air them or not. So NBC aired them, and nobody got shot, nothing got blown up, and I Spy became a top 10 show right from the start.
Cosby was a little hesitant to take this part. Why do you think that was?
Well, he had never acted. Bill Cosby was hesitant because he had never acted, and as I said, you've never seen a black actor playing this kind of a role on TV. He asked Sheldon Leonard, he said, what's going to happen with Bob Cope? We're American spies. What's going to happen when he gets into a fight with, say, Russian spies who are white? Am I going to be hitting a white guy, shooting at a white guy, or am I going to be hiding in the bushes holding the coats while Robert Cope does the fighting? And Sheldon Leonard says, no, you're going to be in it. You're going to be carrying a gun. You're going to be doing all this. So he was afraid, of course he was, of doing something he had never done before, but doing something that nobody had ever done before.
Now, Robert Culp, though, helped him quite a lot, and that came into play in an interesting way when it came Emmy time.
Yeah, Bob Culp he took Bill Cosby under his wing. And Bob Culp had a lot of experience and had a couple series already, and was a very well-respected actor and a very good actor and writer. And he took Bill Cosby in and started writing scripts for Bill Cosby featuring the Alexander Scott character, more so than the Kelly Robinson character, as a gift to Bill Cosby. And Cosby would be nervous. He said, oh my God, you've got me doing a romantic scene with Eartha Kitt, and I'm not an actor. And Bob helped him to become an actor. And Bob even told the director of photography, Fleet Southcott, he said, I got a signal. If we're rehearsing and I'm thinking Bill's not ready, because Bill would be too embarrassed to say something, he said, I'm going to give you a little signal. And you say, oh, we got to do a lighting adjustment so everybody can go to their dressing rooms for 20 minutes. You adjust the lights even though they don't need to be adjusted. And Bob would go into his dressing room with Bill and rehearse the scene and help him get to where he needed to get. So every year, they were both nominated in the same category, Best Lead Actor in a Drama. And every year that the show was on, Bill Cosby won. First black actor to win an Emmy. The same year that Sidney Poitier was the first black actor to win an Oscar.
Well, that's got to be kind of awkward going up against your mentor.
It was, and Bill Cosby's first acceptance speech was amazing. He thanked the network, he thanked Sheldon Leonard, he thanked all the appropriate people, but then he said, my special thanks is to a man who gave up this so that I could have it. A man who taught me how to do what I do so that you would give me this. And I'm talking about Bob Cope, who's made the greatest sacrifice any person could make. But Bob didn't think of it as a sacrifice. He felt vindicated because he believed in Bill Cosby, he believed in the show, in the casting of the show, and he was, I truly believe this, he told me this and I truly believe it, he was happier to see Cosby win than for him to win. It was a greater victory for him. And he believed he would win any Emmys down the road anyway. So every year, he knew they were making history. Every year when Cosby won another Emmy was another chapter in history, and here's the history book that tells it.
So it sounds like they were buddies off screen as well as on screen, and that leads kind of into the next thing we wanted to talk about, the buddy genre. Well, we've seen lots of movies and shows with two people together.
But usually one is a foil to the other. Even going back to Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. You know, they're not really friends. The buddy genre began with I Spy because Bob Cope and Bill Cosby were buddies. They loved each other. And they were rewriting the scripts on the set. They were putting in their slang and their lingo, and they were making these things work that way. So it was the first time we had seen in movies or television two people of the same sex on an adventure, a mixture of comedy and drama, who are protecting each other, who are connected, and they're like family. Prior to that, it was always two people on the run who are handcuffed to each other. You know, Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier and the Defiant Ones, hating each other. In a lot of Hitchcock movies, you know, two people on the run but not trusting each other. These guys were buddies. So from this grew Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Thelma and Louise, Miami Vice, Starsky and Hutch, Lethal Weapon. So many others, two people, same sex on an adventure. And notice how so many of those is really patterned after this. Lethal Weapon, Miami Vice, 48 Hours, Black Man, White Man, partners, holding guns.
Okay, let's talk about some of the technological inventions, I wish I could say the word, that came about as part of the show. There were challenges to shooting on so many locations.
Right, well, that was the third barrier. So you had civil rights, you had the buddy genre, and the third barrier that I Spy broke through, or buddy genre wasn't a barrier, but they created that. But it was finding a way to make this happen around the world. So Sheldon Leonard invented this technology, brought in things from Europe and created some things. So you have the Aeroflex camera came in, small little camera, which they used, by the way, in the movie Bullet, which allowed Steve McQueen to drive his own car up and down those hills in San Francisco. They used the I Spy production crew to film Bullet. McQueen even waited on his schedule. He pushed the movie back 6 months so they would be available to come shoot Bullet for him, because they were the only ones who could get inside a car with a camera at that time in history. They had quartz lights instead of the giant arc lights. They came up with wireless microphones. All the technology that we use today was invented for this show. So that was a great achievement that they were able to do. But there was a lot of drama in shooting on location as well. A lot of great stories in here based on that. Because, again, when you're first doing something, you're going to be first to get into trouble. And there was trouble in almost every country they went into. Amazing stories.
You were telling me about some of them. Greece, Japan, North Africa.
Greece was a military coup. The army was taking over, overthrowing the government. I Spy had already had several episodes written to film there. They had planned all their locations. They were flying in with Cope and Cosby and some serious guest stars. I think Peter Lawford, Boris Karloff, Ricardo Montalban, people like that. And they're all on the plane with Sheldon Leonard, and they're flying in to land, and they're being told they can't land because this revolt had just happened. Well, Leonard, being a gambler, said, oh, they'll let us land. They're not going to risk the bad headlines that all these American stars perish in an airplane crash. So he kept circling the airport until he ran out of gas. They barely made it to Portugal. They landed on fumes. And he had to send somebody from his crew who spoke Greek into Greece with a suitcase full of money to bribe one of the colonels to let him come in and shoot. So that was Greece. You mentioned North Africa. They got lost in North Africa. They were shooting in Casablanca, and they had to go to another city. No cell phones in those days.
No GPS?
No GPS, no guidance systems, so they made a wrong turn. But headlines in this country for weeks that Robert Cope, Bill Cosby, and the I Spy crew are missing somewhere in North Africa. This caravan of trucks vanished into the desert, and it took them days to find their way out of there. Japan was the Japanese mafia kidnapped their production manager and held him for ransom. And one of their grips was electrocuted on the beach while filming a scene, and just all kinds of things happen when you're out there shooting, and nobody's done these things before. So there really isn't a system and a protection to it. It's all just finding your way through it.
In Hong Kong, you said they had to build a special box to hold the camera?
You know, in Hong Kong, they had so much unemployment, and they had crowds, millions of people, literally. But on any given street, hundreds and hundreds. And so you go and shoot a scene, all these people are going to gather and ruin your shots. Well, that's where the wireless microphones came in handy, so you don't see people holding booms. They put the lights in the back of a van, the Cinemobile, and fly the doors open just when they are ready to roll cameras. But they put the camera in a big box, like a crate, on the sidewalk. Had a little hole cut in it so the camera lens could look out. And it worked a few times, but they were so curious, these unemployed people in Hong Kong, that they would see this box sitting there with a hole cut in it, and they'd all come and be looking into the hole, and they couldn't shoot the scene. And it went on for like an hour or two this way, and it's hot there, very humid. When they finally were able to shoot something, they called action, and nothing happens. The cameraman had passed out inside this thing. They called it the sweat box after that point. It was so miserable to be inside that thing. But they're always looking for tricks like this to be able to shoot out in the real world and do it secretly so you could get natural reactions and people passing by without them looking at the camera. Now it's handled with giant crews. They had a small TV crew, so they had to be more inventive.
Let's wrap up talking a little bit about Robert Culp. He participated extensively with you on this book. Tell us about
Bob Cope was terrific. I met him, and I was talking to him about I Spy. I said, how did you do that show? How did you get it on TV? The white and black guy. And shoot around the world like you do. And I said, I always looked to see if there was a book on your show so I could read it. He says, you know, Bill and I don't understand why nobody's ever written a book, because we felt we were making history. And so I finally decided, well, if I'm going to get to read a book on I Spy, I'm going to have to write one. And he was remarkably helpful. I went out to his house 6, 7, 8 times, I think, to interview him, 3 or 4 hours each time. He connected me with Cosby and other people, and gave me photographs. There's a lot of pictures in this book. And
from his private collection.
a lot of them are. I mean, it's an authorized book, so we got a lot of them from the show itself, but a lot of these pictures are from Robert Cope's private collection. So he was and he wrote the foreword, very supportive, very helpful with this, and very forthcoming in his stories. Very, very great integrity and a very honest man. We have an air show going on today. It's remarkable. It's always so fun. Let's shoot this out in the backyard. It's always quiet in the backyard. Let's do that. I think we're going to be dropping bombs on it. We lost Bob a couple of years ago, which was very sad because he was still young. He was healthy, vital, still working. He was going to actually start directing a movie he'd written. They were a couple weeks away from beginning production. So he was still had a lot of life in him. He was out jogging and he had a heart attack, which probably would not have been fatal, but he fell and hit his head and bled from the wound before anybody could get out there. But, you know, the good thing about it is he had a great life. He accomplished so many wonderful things, and he was happy and healthy right up to the end, which I think is how we all want it to be.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's what I want.
Well, thank you for having this very interesting conversation. Do you want to give one final pitch for why we should buy this book? If you haven't already sold it.
To go back in time. I write these to be a time machine. Got one of Star Trek coming out now, the original Star Trek. These are time machines to take you back and put you in the sound stage, to let you be there and watch them make this show, to see those headlines come out, to see the ratings, the Nielsen reports, all the things, to go on location with them. And so it's not looking back at a show. It's taking you back and putting you up front as the show's being made, as history's being made. And that's the way I like to write them. I don't know if there's other people who write books this way. I've never come across them. But I enjoy this technique, and I think you'll enjoy it and get a lot out of it.
Pretty good price for a time machine.
It's $40. It's a little expensive for a soft cover, but look at the size, 500 pages, 100 photographs, and you're going to get whisked back to 1965. Great year.
Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.